On Sunday, June 29th, the Star City Game Center will host the Richie Proffitt Memorial Tournament in Roanoke, Virginia. This will be a standard tournament with 100% of the entry fees going directly to the Proffitt family. The prize pool is completely based on donations from the Magic the Gathering community, and it already looks amazing. Please visit StarCityGames.com to learn more about this special event and how you can be a part of it.
Hi, this is John Finkel. Welcome to the Magic Show.
So you think you're in the middle of the ocean, stranded on an island of your own, stuck at the top of a mountain. Either way you're gonna say you're all alone, and I hesitate to say that you're alive.
Hello everybody and welcome to another edition of the Magic Show. This week we're going to get all up close and personal with some kick-ass Eventide spoilers, prep for this weekend's PTQs, and cover the absolutely monstrous Richie Proffitt Memorial Tournament happening on this Sunday. You ready to delve into the goodness? Let's go. Yes, it's that time again, ladies and gentlemen. The spoiler season is upon us. We now have quite a few cards already, and those are provided to us via Wizards of the Coast so far. Let's see what we have. We'll begin with Overbeing of Myth, the official spoiler from the Eventide preview pack, and I'm still not sure what to make of it. This super duper marrow has not really struck a chord with anyone except perhaps the Timmy crowd right now, as Spikes are far too skeptical of anything that costs more than 2 or 3 mana without having any immediate board impact, while Johnny's already have their marrow combos, and sticking a Howling Mine on it may or may not increase its popularity amongst them. Next is Bloom Tender. Take a long look at this card. Bloom Tender is made for both Constructed and Johnny decks. Constructed decks love cheating on mana, and Bloom Tender allows you to do that. With the current environment so full of hybrid cards, it doesn't take a lot of effort to get 3 or more mana out of this guy to power out silly cards early. Of course, the argument that always arises when some new rare but fragile creature excites the player base is, it dies to everything. Yeah, and so does Tarmogoyf. Now, I'm not calling this a $50 card, but what I'm calling it is a card with ridiculous potential. As for the Johnnies out there, I'll just leave you with one card that instantly gives you Infi mana. Freed from the Real. Enjoy that, you wacky combo lovers out there. On Wednesday, Wizards unveiled the spoiler archive for Eventide, and with it almost a dozen brand new cards sure to whet your appetites for what looks to be an awesome set. The most exciting has to be Unmake. Wow, look at that art. Just incredible. And it's common. I repeat, it is common. That is reason enough to jump for joy. This will be huge in standard, block, and will be a staple for years to come. If you're lucky enough to crack a foil one of these, enjoy your new $5 bill. I love every bit of this card. The cost, the effect, the artwork, even the flavor text is solid. Wonderful work. Already one of my favorite cards in the set. Speaking of exciting, check out Stigma Lasher. Ridiculous. This is how to impress Magic players. Give them something that's been needed and read for a long time, that is, the ability to shut off life gain until the end of the current game without having to leave mana up for something like Flames of the Bloodhand, then put it on an efficient bear. This is what you got. This, again, will be impacting Standard, Extended, and Block almost immediately, as its effect is just fantastic in a world filled with Kitchen Finks and Dragon's Claws. Before we tackle one of the hot new mechanics, we'll take a look at Endless Horizons. Sheesh, talk about your control player's dream. Not only do they never miss a land drop in their mono-white or near mono-white deck, they thin their deck in the process. This is one of those cards that makes your eyes go wide but can easily fizzle due to the innate underpowered nature of white. This is a very difficult card to use with Kithkin, whose mana curve is so low, and in Snow White or Turbo Fog because those decks need to be playing Martyr of Sands or pumping their mana into Sacred Mesa or Story Circle. However, the ability to never miss a land drop in that deck seems pretty friggin' good to me. Next up is yet another mechanic that makes Life from the Loam awesome. Retrace. Take a look at Raven's Crime. Now this is a fairly harmless card, and when you first read Retrace you think, well, this is just flashback with an additional discard payment. Then you read it again. Do you notice that Retrace doesn't actually have the words, and then remove this spell from the game on it? That's right, pay a black and discard a land for the rest of the game and your opponents are discarding a card. Now that may be a bit underpowered, but when you can do it every turn because your land flooded and your opponent is not, at that point you're trading excess lands for their spells. Retrace is one of those mechanics that can get really annoying really easily, and so far there is nothing game-shattering about them, but I'm guessing a spiky Retrace card will pop up to wreak havoc on metagames as people run to their extirpates and withered wretches in response. Wrapping this up, we have Needle Specter, which seems a little underwhelming to me. Firstly, without a giant growth, he's just not that scary. He needs pumps to be scary, and while pumps are certainly fruitful in Lorwyn block, you can't rely on them, and without that reliance, his value drops considerably. 3-mana 1/1 flyers that don't have flash or give other fairies shroud will probably not be making an impact, even with evasion. Consider this one Johnny Fair only. Finally, we have Gape, who is ridiculously scary in the Elementals deck. Of course, with every set release, and particularly in a hybrid block, it's hard to say what the Elementals decks may look like. With that said, I believe putting this guy into play with an Incandescent Soulstoke to rock you like a hurricane for 11 trample damage is pretty friggin' scary. Then, of course, you bring him back with Horde of Notions and show your opponent what scary really is. Rawr. I, for one, am certainly excited about the new set after reviewing these, and I hope you are as well. It's tough to do a multicolor block wrong, and Wizard certainly isn't disappointing with Eventide. Okay, so this Sunday, the big tournament is happening. As you already know, the event is expected to be huge, and I hope everyone is planning to make it. Remember, there's a PTQ on Saturday, which is tomorrow, to allow you to sling your cards in hopes of a free plane ride to Germany. For those battling in that event, let's take a look at the most recent PTQ stats. I believe these are quite telling. Firstly, Fairies is ridiculously dominant, and I mean ridiculously. Look at this, 31 top 8s, with 5 of them taking home the prize. How about over 45% of first place finishes being Fairies? I don't know what to say, but if you're thinking about running anything but Fairies in block, you better have tested that matchup quite a bit. It's going to be rough. Mirror Master, aka the Kithkin deck, was second with 22% of top 8s and almost 28% of first place. The next in line is Quicken Toast, the Vivid Land / Reflecting Pool deck that grinds you out with its wild mana cost, its powerful commands, and soul-crushing Una, Queen of the Fae, whom we refer to as Big Perm in these parts. After that, the field is a mix of Elementals decks featuring Incandescent Soulstoke, the Shaman deck with a Hojillion Shaman and a few Lash Out, Merfolk powering its way to first place in Nebraska, with Doran the Explorer and the Rock finishing out the big archetypes. If I were without those pricey Bitter Blossoms, I would probably rely on Kithkin or Elementals. Both are fairly cheap, and while both the Fairies player and the Kithkin player believe this matchup is easy for one another, the truth is, in Magic, things are never quite so simple. Then again, remember, if you choose one of these popular archetypes, particularly the top 3, you better have a solid plan against the mirror because you'll be bound to play it. Moving on to Standard, things get much more interesting. Taking a look at the stats, Fairies, of course, still reign supreme. However, you have plenty of interesting decks that can adequately battle Fairies on their own terms. Merfolk are the other big deck in Standard, as they rock 8 Lords and are powered with the ever-awesome Cryptic Command, aka the Blue Wrath of God. Revelark is still so annoying it hurts, so be sure to get those Fairy Macabres in your sideboard no matter what colors you're playing. Green-red snow decks were surprisingly popular at regionals, and Scred hits hard no matter what deck you're playing. Meanwhile, the red decks and the red-green aggro decks still loom large, while green-white oversoul decks loom in the background. As for my recommendation as to what to play on Sunday, I would choose an archetype I've not yet spoken of, Green-Black Elves. This is a powerhouse archetype with plenty of big creatures, spells, and resilience. Quite simply, Green-Black is the deck you want to play if you want to consistently do well. It's always the same with the Green-Black rock decks. They have no good matchups, but they have no bad matchups. Even when it appeared that Paulo Vitor would simply crush Shuhei Nakamura in Hollywood with his Fairies deck, it wasn't quite that simple against the Japanese master. And as Charles Gindy can attest, Merfolk looks scary, but a few good draws and some tight play can get you through it. Just remember, however, that both Mutavault and Chameleon Colossus get pumped and gain Island Walk via Lord of Atlantis. Speaking of Mutavault, if you're interested in a highly sexy extended art version of this blockbuster card, then you better get yourself to Roanoke on Sunday and support Richie Proffitt's fantastic Memorial Tournament. I'll be on site both battling and filming, and your participation will determine whether or not we can continue doing this year after year. So until next time, Magic players, when you'll see what happens on Sunday, along with a brand new Eventide spoiler just for me. Yes, it only took 2 years. This is Evan Irwin, tapping the cards so you don't have to.
This is skin. You can wrap all of your arms and legs in an address that you know. An envelope unfolds, a writing to